Hello, welcome back to the James Rambling Reviews for yet another episode, and in today's episode I actually saw the Borderlands movie. This is not AI, Photoshop or scripted. I actually saw this movie, and if you want further evidence, I literally have a ticket of Borderlands right here. I was gonna bin it, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put this as a bit at the start of the video so you actually believe me, as the reception to this film has certainly been very, it's not been the most positive, right? And so I'm not gonna drag this out too much. So today's review is going to be a bit different, as I'm going to be reviewing the Borderlands movie. I watched the movie last night, right? I was just bored out of my mind on a Tuesday afternoon. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go to the cinema by myself and see this film and see what it's actually all about. So before we get into this review, I may spoil this movie so that I can explain a few things, but I'm not going to spoil this entire film. If you actually want to see this movie, well, just stay tuned for my thoughts. And so before we get into this, before I get into how I felt about the movie, what I'd give it out of 10, I'm just going to give you some interesting background and history with these kind of video game adaptations and Borderlands. So I liked the Mario movie. I also liked the Last of Us TV show. I played the Mario games a lot as a kid. I didn't play Last of Us much, but I loved the TV show. There was also that Dungeons and Dragons movie. And so when it came to Borderlands, right, the movie itself, it was like, you know what, I've heard of these games before. I never really played the games too much, but I definitely heard about them. They're very popular. And so I seen the trailers, and I thought this was going to be kind of fun. It kind of looked like the Guardians of the Galaxy, with all of these kind of crazy eccentric characters coming together to do a mission, a sci-fi mission in a kind of universe, galaxy kind of thing. So there's definitely that, where I didn't have the reference point of the Borderlands games. And during this review, right, I'm going to mention the fact that I actually played the games after the movie, and I'll give my thoughts later on as to how I felt about that. So Borderlands, right, I know I'm just building up this video, right? So Borderlands is pretty much this movie where you have Jack Black, you have Cate Blanchett, you have Kevin Hart, right? You also have some cameo of Bobby Lee in this movie, and so you have a lot of these famous actors coming to do this movie. And so Borderlands is pretty much this popular game. It's kind of you're in the galaxy, all of that kind of stuff, and there's all these characters, and the movie goes on for about an hour and 40 minutes and stuff like that. And so that's pretty much the best thing I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say up front about the movie. You got the big actors in this movie, all that kind of stuff. So the movie has received a horrible reputation online, as I mentioned earlier on in this review. And to say the least, when it comes to how I felt about the movie, this movie, when I say this, I'm not actually joking when I say this right now. This might actually be one of the worst movies I've seen of 2024. And yes, there is some exaggeration online, to say the least. But as I constantly started to think about this film, there is points where Jack Black plays this character called Claptrap in the film, right? And you got Kevin Hart as Roland, you've got Cate Blanchett as Lilith, you've got these characters, And if you don't know the games, and I'm going to mention this now that I did play the games, and so Lilith is actually like a 20-year-old character in the original Borderlands. There's like a shot where you see Lilith, she's really young at the start and like the intro bit of the game, whatever, and then it just seems like she is actually, Kate Blanchett is actually like 50 years old playing a 20-year-old character. And there are literally points where the movie have these like weird narrations, there's a lot of like fast action sequences, and it feels really messy. There's points where the pacing, like you feel like it's a fast paced action movie, then it slows down to have these really weird narrations, and there's like one or two jokes that land every now and again, and a lot of the, like, see the characters that you're focusing on, they don't have that much chemistry, if you know what I mean. Like, it's like I mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy earlier on in this review, right? It's like they don't have the chemistry, you're not invested in it as much. Like, Claptrap is meant to be like this robot guy, and he's like silly, and he's meant to be like an NPC. So for example, like a non-playable character in the original Borderlands and also Borderlands 2. And so he is this guy that this character is like, you know, he kind of helps you along the ride to do the missions. But in this movie, he's literally like a co-protagonist, so he's at like a butt of a lot of jokes, and there is like one or two jokes from everybody that's funny. And it just comes to this point where I don't know if you can call the movie like fun bad. There is like one or two jokes, and that is pretty much it, and the movie tries to make an excuse for a plot, and it just has really weird special effects in the final act. And there's literally like a point in this movie where I googled if there was a post-credit scene or not. I literally walked out of the cinema as the credits were rolling. I just needed the toilet, and it was that kind of movie. So out of 10, I would give this movie like if you want to actually be generous, it's like a 5 out of 10. I've seen better and I've also seen worse, but the more you actually start to digest and think about this movie, had I seen this with a group of people, I would have been like talking about the actual flaws of this movie for at least 5 hours on a ride home or something. That is kind of what it felt like, and so that is my review of Borderlands. The movie, it certainly is this type of movie where I would not recommend you going out to seeing it. Wait on like a streaming platform where, you know, you can just like get it for free or like on a discount or something like that, or just like, you know, go on a website, watch it, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because on my ticket, right, it literally says, for people who don't know, it says 00 on the price, and so this was technically a free experience, but I wasted my time a lot, and so this is going to be a bit of a longer review, but this needs to be a deep dive, as I had a few things to explain. There's so many ways to talk about this movie because it's such a messy film. So yeah, that's my review. Stay tuned for more like it. Stay tuned for more like it on the James Rambling Reviews. So yeah, bye. Borderlands is borderline a very, 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 very strangely messy film indeed, guys.